Well, hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Anka Solosky. I'm a registered dietitian. I work for a practice called Sound Dietitians, where I get to do these lovely classes for you guys. Want to start by thanking Skagit Regional Health for sponsoring this class and Stilly Valley Health Connections for hosting the class. So today we are learning how to build delicious bowls. So this is just one variation. What I love about this type of recipe is you can put whatever spin you want on it and add whatever seasonings and sauces and veggies, proteins, whatever you want. So I'm going to show you just one variation today, and I'll talk about different things that you could swap out. Besides the bowl, our protein today is going to be oven roasted garbanzo beans, also known as chickpeas. So you'll see your recipes, you have 4 different variations of spice blends to use. We're going to be doing the curry blend. So I already have my chickpeas. I rinse them. I just let them like air dry a little bit on the pan. Ideally, you would get like a low sodium or no salt added canned chickpea. I wasn't able to find that at the grocery store, so I just rinsed these guys a little extra longer, and we're not going to add any extra salt because they're already like pretty salty. So for the curry blend, we're going to add coriander, turmeric, mustard seed, like ground mustard seed, and chili. So I already have all of my spices in this little bowl here. I gave them a nice mix so they would be well blended together. We're just going to add some oil, right? Because we want these to roast. We want these garbanzo beans to get nice and crispy. And I'm just going to sprinkle this blend on top. And I'm going to use my hands to just blend it all together so they're evenly coated. And these guys are still a little wet, but once they get in the oven, that extra moisture is going to evaporate, and they're going to stay in the oven for about 30-40 minutes, almost until the class is over, just to get nice and golden brown, hopefully a little crispy. And these guys, you can add them to a salad. You can add them as your main protein. You could even roast them until they're really nice, crispy, dry, and have them as a snack and just keep them to store them. If you were to do it where it's really crispy and dry, you can put them in a Ziploc bag with a paper towel on top and just leave them on the counter for up to 2 days if they last that long. Okay. So I'm going to put these to the side for now because I want to finish chopping up my veggies so we can throw everything in the oven at the same time. So I already have some cubed sweet potatoes. So this is going to be one of our veggies, one of our root veggies that we're going to add. I also have, along with some extra sweet potatoes on here, some red onion that I just chopped up. And I will continue to do that. Just wanted to show you guys also how I like to chop up the onion for this recipe specifically. So I typically take my onion, cut it in half. And then to get these like almost like they're rectangles, but like square-like shapes. And Erica, if you could do like a from the top view. Okay, so I'll usually just cut it down lengthwise. I'll do like maybe like 4 cuts depending on the size of the onion, and then 3-4 cuts this way as well. And you get these nice pieces. And this is also the way that I like to cut them when I'm doing like stir fries as well. Just throw them in a wok, get them nice and crispy. And it gives you a little bit more of a bite than if you were to do like a thin ring or even like a small diced onion, right? So I'm just separating the different layers as much as I can with this. And the nice thing about this recipe is if you cut everything about the same size, you can throw everything on the same sheet pan and just cook it all together. So I'm actually going to throw some onions on here too, because I'm kind of limited with my space. I'm going to do the same thing with this other onion as well. So onions, not only do they have a lot of flavor, right? No dish is complete without onion and garlic. They also have a lot of antimicrobial properties. So a lot of antiviral. You'll see people talk about eating a lot of garlic and onions during cold and flu season, right? Because it helps protect your body and improve your immune system with those antimicrobial properties. And they add, if you use, your red onions, they add a nice color. Right. Okay, I'm gonna do this last one and then I'll move on to my peppers. So for the peppers, did 3 colors and I will tell you why later on in this class. But I got my red, my yellow, my orange peppers, and we're only going to do half of each. I saved the other half so I could cut them up so we could have them raw too, have it kind of two-way, get some extra crunch. So with this bowl, you have your cooked veggies, right? And raw veggies as well. So you could really do any variation you want of the cooked versus raw. Okay. And kind of similar to the onion, I'm just gonna do, at least for these cooked peppers, because they will shrink down, I'm just gonna do kind of bigger chunks because I also want them to cook about the same time as everything else. So if they're a little bit bigger, it'll take them about the same time to cook as the sweet potatoes and the cauliflower. Just a big dice right here. I'm gonna add them to different pans. Okay. And for the cauliflower, again, I'm gonna just chop it up into florets. Nothing too fancy. I'm actually going to take out the core as much as I can just because it's a little bit tough and it'll impact the cooking time. And it makes breaking it up into florets a lot easier once you get out this core. But you could absolutely cut this up into smaller cubes and use it as well if you wanted to. Okay. So I'm just gonna break this with my hands. You don't even need a knife to break the cauliflower into different florets. Okay. And then the broccoli, because I'm running out of space, the broccoli, I'm just gonna cook it in a pan. But you could absolutely, if you had a little bit more room, you could absolutely just throw it on a sheet pan with everything else and just cook it at the same time. Okay, so next, just gonna add some oil. So we want about 2 tablespoons of oil or a little bit more because we have quite a few veggies on here on each sheet pan. And then it's just salt and pepper to taste. So let's see. Hopefully my grinder works. And we're gonna get some flavor too from the sauces that we're making. So don't feel like you necessarily need to season the veggies generously. You could absolutely add other things like garlic powder and onion powder, paprika. If you wanted to do like a spicy blend, you could add some cayenne. It's really up to like you, what you want to do, what your family likes, what you like. And then it's about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt over these guys. I don't want to salt them too much, especially since we're going to have the chickpeas that are already a little salty, and the sauces are going to have some salt as well. We're going to give these a nice toss, make sure they're pretty evenly coated. There's always mess in the kitchen, right? I'm just going to leave those there for now. Okay. And try to spread these out as evenly as you can, just to get a nice roast on all of them. Okay. Yeah.
Frozen veggies would work or not?
So frozen veggies likely would not work in the oven. You could possibly get away with something like broccoli, possibly, or carrots, but you could steam them or just throw them in a pan to get that extra moisture off. Yeah, absolutely. So you don't necessarily have to do roasted veggies for this dish. You could just do frozen, right? Or even like canned veggies too would work. I'm thinking mostly like something like a canned artichoke would be very lovely if you did like a Mediterranean style bowl, or like canned baby corn would be really nice and crunchy. Okay. So my ovens are preheated at 400 degrees. And these guys are going to be in there for about 30 minutes. So I'm just going to set my timer. We'll check on them, see how they're doing. Okay. So while those are in there, I'm actually going to chop up my broccoli just to have it ready to go. So we're just going to do florets. And I like to use the stem of these guys as well. So when I get to this part, right, I typically chop a little bit of these stems because they're pretty soft. But once you get to this part, it's pretty tough. Like you can't really pierce it with your finger. So what I like to do is take my knife, do a cut, and basically cut around the core that is soft on the inside. And just for, safety reasons, always have your flat edge on the cutting board. Makes it a lot easier. So then I'm left with this rectangular stem that is nice and soft. And this just helps to save on waste too. And it tastes exactly like broccoli. Has a little bit of a softer texture than the florets, but just as delicious, honestly. Okay. Same thing with this one. Gonna stop around here because these are a little bit tougher. Also taking the bottom off because this is pretty tough as well. And same thing, just gonna take the edges off. Okay. And you could also eat this raw if you were doing like raw broccoli. Absolutely, you could throw these on there. So I'm just gonna leave my broccoli right here while we get started on our grains. So your recipe, this nutritious and delicious power bowl, this is what we're looking at next. So your whole grain on that recipe is quinoa. So that's what I have over here. And Erica, do you have like a overhead view? Okay, so I have my quinoa here. This is just a white quinoa. You could do whatever color you want. There's red quinoa. I think that's it. Maybe some other color. But I just took my quinoa. I rinsed it really well for about like a minute or two, and then we're just going to add water to it. So this is 3.5 cups of water, and just going to cover it. Spill a little bit. Going to clean this up. So I'm just going to cover it and put it on high until it starts boiling, and then I'm going to lower the heat down. Quinoa is pretty forgiving, so if you don't do the right ratio of water, you can always go back later and add a little bit more, cook it for a little bit longer, and get the right texture. And I also wanted to add another grain in case people don't like quinoa. This is just jasmine rice. I rinsed it 3 times. And so it's not my secret, but what I've learned works in terms of water to rice ratio is you rinse your rice, you add water, and then just your thumbnail, the water above the rice should be about to your thumbnail, and that is somehow a perfect ratio, and it works every time. This also works for brown rice as well. So I'm going to turn this guy on as well. Hopefully this is the right one. Yeah. Again, until it starts boiling, and then I'm going to reduce it down to a simmer until all the water is absorbed into the rice. Same thing like quinoa, if the water ratio isn't quite right, you can always add a little bit more water, mix it, and then just let it cook a little bit longer. Pretty forgiving as well. Okay. So while these guys are going and getting started, let's work on our sauces. So we have 2 sauces here that we're going to do. So let's actually start. We'll start with the lemon garlic tahini dressing. So this is a really easy one. Basically, throw all of the ingredients in a food processor or blender and just blend it until it's well combined and adjust for thickness. So we're going to start with 1/2 cup of tahini. And so my trick for anything that is sticky, like a nut butter, which tahini is a ground sesame paste, is I like to just coat whatever my measuring utensil is with oil, and that helps it slide right out. Works really, really well for peanut butter. I'm actually going to do the same thing. We have honey as well. That can be pretty sticky. So I added a little bit of oil to the teaspoon that I'm going to use to measure out the honey as well. Oh, 1 second. I forgot to add the blade to this. Okay. So we're going to do 1/2 cup of tahini. So this tahini is pretty liquidy. Depending on where you get it from, it'll vary in how thin it is. So we might not even need to add too much water to this at the end. And I'm just helping it out just to get the rest of it. My hands are clean, by the way. Okay. All right. Next, we're gonna add 2 garlic cloves. So I just clean them of the peel. Don't need to do anything else to them. The food processor is gonna do all the work basically. Got about 1/2 cup of fresh lemon juice. Okay. And this is about a quarter cup of nutritional yeast. So nutritional yeast is actually just yeast that has some added B12 and B vitamins added to it. So it's a really good source of B12 for plant-based diets where you're not getting meat to get that extra B12. And I always tell my patients that are doing a plant-based diet, either vegan, vegetarian, it's always a good idea to also have a multivitamin or a B vitamin supplement on board, just to make sure that there's no nutritional deficiencies. B12 especially, it can take up to a decade to start seeing symptoms of deficiency. So you could be deficient for a really long time without even knowing it. So it's a really good thing to look for, especially when deciding if you want to do something like a plant-based diet or not. All right, so I got my 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, and then my honey next, just a teaspoon. Okay, might be a little bit more because it's a little bit hard to measure. Okay. And then we're just going to do salt, pepper to taste, a little bit of water. Where's my salt and pepper? Okay. So about 1/8 of a teaspoon is just like a very small pinch. We don't need a whole lot because this is pretty flavorful. And it looks like my rice is going, it's boiling really nicely. So I'm just going to turn it down to a simmer. And then we're going to add some pepper. This is actually not entirely black pepper. There's some pink peppercorns in this as well. And a little bit of water. You could do the water to basically what texture or consistency you want. I'm going to measure it out. I'm going to start with 2 tablespoons just because that tahini was pretty liquidy. Okay. And this is the hard part. Okay. All right. So basically, I'm just looking for that garlic to actually be blended in really well. No chunks, right? We don't want a chunky sauce. We want it to be nice and smooth. I'm just gonna take, oh, that's pretty nice. It's not blended through all the way. I'm gonna help it out, and I do think it does need that extra water, actually. Okay, so I'm just gonna do 1 extra tablespoon of the water. Okay. Okay. And you could also use just like a hand blender as well for this. That would work really well as well. So it's a pretty smooth texture. But that garlic isn't quite blended all the way through. So I'm going to just blitz it a little bit more. All right, that should be good. And I'm just gonna leave it in here for for now. And then I'll put it in a bowl for everybody once we plate everything up. So that's the lemon garlic tahini dressing. Next, we're going to move on to the ranch. So this ranch is a Greek yogurt ranch. So it has a little bit extra protein to it. So I have some milk here. This is actually, I didn't have regular milk at home, so it's just oat milk. It works if you want to do non-dairy milk, that works really well. Or you could just do regular milk. And then you want to add some lemon juice. So you'll see the instructions say to add your lemon juice to the milk and then let it stand for about 5 minutes. And that is the easiest way to create buttermilk, basically, right? So the lemon juice helps the milk curdle a little bit. It's not going to do that with the oat milk because the oat milk doesn't really have any protein in it. So really, in this case, it's just going to provide a little bit of a tangy taste. So we don't have to let it sit for 5 minutes. We could just add everything else. So we're going to do about 2/3 of a cup of mayo. And you could absolutely use like a vegan mayo if you wanted. This is just regular mayo. Yeah. We're gonna do 2/3 of a cup. And then for the yogurt, you'll see that there's a range in terms of the quantity for this. So between 1/2 cup and 2/3 of a cup of yogurt, or about 1 small container of Greek yogurt. So this is just plain non-fat. You could do full fat. Doesn't really matter. And this is about a little over 1/2 cup, really. One of these like small containers of Greek yogurt. Okay. Next, I'm going to add my herbs. So I have dried dill, dried parsley, and dried chives. Now, during the summer when the herbs are really nice and fresh and flavorful, you could do this with fresh ingredients. You just want to add more of what the quantities are listed here, just because with any like dried herb, you're going to have a more concentrated flavor than you would with a fresh herb. And then I have some garlic powder, onion powder, just adding that in. My salt and pepper, just a small pinch, especially since that mayo has salt already, so we don't need a whole lot. And pepper to taste. Okay, and give this a nice blend. So this is actually a little liquidier than I would like. So I'm just going to add a little extra mayo to it, just to get it a little bit thicker. Okay. And you could also leave it a little bit thin. It makes it a little easier to drizzle it on the bowl. But that's pretty much our ranch. I'm just gonna let it sit so those flavors can kind of blend into the mix. Okay. All right. So let's see how we're doing on time. So I'm actually gonna get started on my broccoli. The broccoli should not take too much time at all. Okay, let's see. So I'm gonna do medium heat, add my oil. All right. Gonna let this heat up just a minute. Let's do this one. All right. I'm just going to throw my broccoli in. I'm going to add the lid to this and kind of just let it cook a little bit. And then I'm going to add some water to help it steam a little bit more. Okay. All right. Okay, and while that heats up, we're gonna move on to our raw veggies. So basically just chopping these up and getting them ready for our bowl. Okay. So I have some green onions for some flavor. You could do a variety of different herbs. You could do chives if you wanted instead of the green onion. And I'm just gonna give these a nice little chop. That's such a satisfying sound, isn't it? The chopping. I really like to add basil to this when the basil is good in the summer. And really you could do whatever toppings you want for this. Okay. I'm just going to add these to a bowl. So basically what we're going to do at the end is I'm just going to have everything out and you guys can create your bowls however you want, add whatever toppings you want. It's really customizable, right? Okay. Okay, and I turned down the quinoa. I'm actually going to turn it down even more to just a simmer. All right. And then I already have some cucumbers that I sliced in here. Gonna slice a little bit more. I'm just gonna do like a thin slice just to add a little bit of crunch and freshness. Cucumbers are really great for hydration. I think they're like 98% water or something like that. So they can provide you with quite a bit of fluid. Okay. And then for the bell peppers, I am just going to cut them into, let's see, what do you guys think? Like a small dice? Should we do like some strips? Any preferences?
Like the idea of the strips.
The strips? Okay, we can do the strips. So for the strips, I typically just cut it in half, right? This is half a pepper, so I guess a quarter of a pepper, and then just do some like nice strips. Okay, so kind of going back to what I said earlier, why I chose a variety of different colors of the peppers. So one of the things that is kind of like popping up and blowing up, I should say, in the nutrition world is fiber. A lot of people are talking about fiber. We're seeing a lot of different fiber supplements out on the market. And you basically get fiber from your plant foods, right? Fruits, veggies, grains, beans, legumes, nuts, seeds. So pretty much almost all of our ingredients except for the sauces, right? And fiber is really important for the gut microbiome. So your gut, your little bugs that live in your gut that make you who you are, basically. And we actually have a lot more research now suggesting that our gut microbiome is responsible for a lot of different aspects of our health. Okay. I'm gonna give this a toss. Oop. I'm gonna turn this down a little bit and I'm gonna add some water so that it steams. Add a little bit more. Okay. Okay. So the gut microbiome, we actually have studies suggesting that it can increase, depending on what bugs you have in your microbiome, it can increase your risk for things like diabetes and heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's. So it's really important to think about your gut microbiome and feed it so that the healthy microbes flourish and have enough food to grow. And the way that we do that is by eating fiber. Our gut microbiome feeds on fiber. So we can't digest fiber itself, but they absolutely can. And in return, they create substances that are that we then absorb and can use. So it's really important to eat enough fiber. Okay, moving on to some cherry tomatoes. I already have some cut up. These are just washed, so I'm just gonna half them while I keep talking about the microbiome. So gut experts are actually now looking into, okay, we know fiber, we need more fiber. The recommendations are about 25 grams of fiber per day for women and 38 grams of fiber per day for men. The reason it's higher for men is men have larger colons than women and actually have an increased risk for colon cancer compared to women. So that's where that recommendation comes from. But when we actually look at how much fiber most Americans get in a day, it's about 15 grams. So we're still missing quite a bit. But now we know, like, not only is getting enough fiber really important, also the type of fiber that you're getting and the colors that you're getting. So the microbiome feeds on fiber, but it also feeds on phytochemicals, which are chemicals that give fruits and veggies and plant foods their color, basically, right? So maybe you've heard in tomatoes of lycopene. That's really important for cardiovascular health. That is a phytonutrient. Okay, just checking these guys. And so the recommendation now that gut experts are telling us is you want to eat a variety of different colors per week to make sure that you are feeding your gut microbiome optimally. So similar to humans, our gut bugs also have preferences in food. So you might have a bug that likes kale and one that actually doesn't prefer kale. So it's really important to make sure that you're kind of meeting the needs of everybody in your gut. And so with with more recent studies, they've actually seen that a good number of colors of plant foods to have per week is about 30 to 40 different colors of plant foods. Okay, let me explain. So when we're talking about 30 to 40 different plant foods, I'm also talking about the different colors. So for example, if you have a red apple, a green apple, yellow apple, that counts as 3. So don't feel like you have to eat 30, 40 different actual plant foods. It can be the same food, just a different color. So at the end, when we pull everything out of the oven, we're actually going to count and see how many different colors of the plant foods we have here. So you can kind of get a sense of what 30 to 40 might look like, right? It's a large number. I have done the experiment myself to count and see how many of them I can get in 1 week. And I think the largest amount I could do was like 35. And then that was it. And that was kind of pushing it, buying like fruits and veggies that I haven't in a while. So it does take, some time and effort and really like thinking about what foods you're actually eating in a week, right? Okay, so we have about a minute left on that timer. I just want to check these guys, especially the chickpeas. So the chickpeas, they're getting a little golden brown, but they're still, so ideally what you would want when you shake them is that you would hear them a little bit more than you hear them now, so that they're nice and dry. So I'm gonna leave these in for a little bit longer, but I am gonna take a fork to pierce my sweet potatoes and my cauliflower to see how these guys are doing. Okay. So these are nice and soft and brown. Oh, these guys are good. Okay. I am gonna pull out some of these guys. Okay, let's see. So these are some of the sweet potatoes and the onions. What are those? Peppers as well. And then over on this tray, we got more sweet potatoes, peppers, onions, a couple of stray cauliflower. There we go. So I'm gonna let these cool down a little bit. And just waiting on this other tray that has the cauliflower, the rest of the cauliflower as well. And let me check the broccoli. I think this might be done as well. Oh, still a little hard. So broccoli, super forgiving. I'm just gonna add some extra water to this to help it cook a little bit more. Okay. All right. And then along with, so we have our cucumbers, peppers, tomatoes. I also have some leafy greens. So this is arugula and spinach. So it's a mix, makes it a lot easier to get some more of that plant foods with these mixes that already have, a couple of different ones already in there. We have our green onions. And I also brought some crunchy things. So you could do a variety of nuts and seeds just to add some crunch, and also some omega-3s. So I have some hemp seeds here. These are gonna be really good sources of omega-3s, at least plant-based ones. Your other sources of omega-3s are gonna be fatty fish, right? So like salmon or cold water fish. But in terms of plant foods, hemp seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds are going to be high in omega-3s, and then some nuts like walnuts. I also have some pumpkin seeds here as well. just to add it some more nutrition, right? And these guys, so your nuts and seeds, also count as those plant foods. Okay. I'm just gonna leave them in the bag like this just for ease of cleaning. Okay. Erica, any questions?
Question
Yeah.
about the job of nutritionists. Do nutritionists help you change bad habits such as late night snacking or boredom eating? Or is it more about just what you're eating?
So it's everything. A lot of the times it's a combination of things, right? We teach people how to make better choices and eat better foods, but a lot of the time it is a lot of behavior change. A lot of the times, like, people know what they need to eat, how to eat healthy. There's just so much information out there. Whether you want to hear it or not, at one point in life, you do kind of run into information about healthy eating, but a lot of times you don't run into information about how to change habits. So I work with a lot of patients that do a lot of eating when they're not hungry. And that's something that we really work towards with behavior change. And it's a pretty long process. It kind of, these habits, a lot of my patients are adults, so they've had these habits for decades oftentimes. So it's a lot of, you know, trial and error and figuring out what works for each individual person. But it's a lot more than just giving people meal plans. We don't really do that anymore. Great question. Okay. I'm actually gonna leave this a little bit more. So my quinoa, I'm gonna taste it a little bit. I wanna make sure that it's nice and fluffy and not crunchy. Oh yeah, that's nice, good. So once you're done with your quinoa, you can turn it off and then just use a fork to fluff it up. This makes it nice and airy. Again, if this was a little crunchy, so you want it to be nice and soft. If this was a little crunchy, you could absolutely just add some extra water. Give it a nice mix and then just cook it for a little bit longer. But I'm actually just gonna cover it a little bit for it to stay warm. And then the rice, I'm just leaning the pot to the side to see if there's any water that pools, and there isn't any. So this is done as well. And we're just waiting on our broccoli and these guys in here. So I'll give them another check. And again, the chickpeas, woo, okay. You know, you could have them as crispy as you want them, right? As long as they're not black and burned, they should be good to go. So I think these are actually quite a nice texture. So I'm gonna pull these out and let's see. Let me see, how do I wanna do this? So ideally you would start with your grains. So I'm gonna put the grains over here and then kind of work your way down the line. We're gonna do the rice, the quinoa. Okay, and why I love this recipe is also kind of going back to healthy eating. This is a really great recipe to use for healthy eating. Not only are you getting a lot of veggies, right? It also is really easy to build a balanced bowl by having, you know, your grains, your protein, your veggies, some extra fat. So the fat can count as either the oil that we use to cook the veggies in, or like nuts and seeds and the sauces that we add at the end. And you're getting a variety of different colors, right? So let's actually actually count. Okay. So we have, let's see. So I'm going to count the rice and the quinoa as 2, right? Because those are 2 different plant foods. We have the sweet potatoes, the red bell pepper, red onion, yellow bell pepper, cauliflower, orange bell pepper, the chickpeas, cucumber, 10, cherry tomatoes, 11. These 2 leafy greens count as 2. Green onions, another one. If you add hemp seeds and pumpkin seeds, that would put us at 16. Broccoli, 17. And then you could add the herbs that we added to the dressing and the garlic. So that would put us at 21. So with one meal, you have 21 different plant foods that, and the tahini, actually, that counts too. So 22 different plant foods that you can have just one meal. And you could even do this, you know, meal prep this so that you have all of this for a week and maybe have a couple of different proteins. So you could do meat, you could do tofu, you could do lentils or other beans. It's a really, really easy recipe to do for meal prepping. It works really well. And you could have a couple of different grains. So you could also do, you know, brown rice, you could do farro, you could do amaranth, like so many different things, so many different options. So again, this is just one variation of what this bowl could look like, but you could do a variety of different sauces or toppings. You could add crunchy things. You could even do just the raw veggies and not even cook the veggies, or not do the raw veggies at all and just do the cooked veggies. It's really up to you. It's very versatile.
There's a question.
Yeah.
How long do the bowls last if you meal prep?
So it depends on which component, right? Your grains are going to last, you know, rice typically lasts about 3 days in the fridge. Quinoa could last up to like 5, 6. Your cooked veggies could very well last up to a week. Raw veggies, so it kind of depends on the raw veggie. 2, 3 days typically. For like the leafy greens, you could always put them in a Ziploc baggie with a paper towel on top to kind of get out that extra moisture. Same thing with these guys, with like cucumbers and more like fluid heavy vegetables, that would also work too. And then, you know, your nuts and seeds, keep them in the fridge and they last like months on end, right? So each component, it's kind of different. And then your protein, you know, probably a week. Yeah.
Another question.
Yeah.
And you repeat it back just the way they know that you're repeating it. Does it matter how much of each color? Just a little bit of garlic in one dressing helps.
So does it matter how much of each color? So yes and no. Like for something like garlic, you're not going to eat a whole head of garlic in one sitting, right? Or even in 1 week. So even a small amount does end up in your gut, and your gut microbes that love the garlic will eat it. So even a small amount does count, in my opinion. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Broccoli is pretty much done. I guess, Erica, should I assemble a bowl just for people to see what the final product looks like? Yeah. Okay. Let me just grab a bowl here. And let's see, serving utensils.
Probably big spoons.
Yeah, big spoons, that's what I was thinking. I guess, Erica, do you want me to assemble like one for you? No? Okay. So let me just add a couple of these. Okay. Let's see. We'll do one for these. Then we do some broccoli. This, okay. I'm gonna walk through. Ah. Okay. This is going to be really packed. Ooh. Okay. Let's just add some hemp seeds. Nice little crunch on here. Some pumpkin seeds. And then we'll do a drizzle of this ranch. It's still a little liquidy. Let's do that. And then a little blob of this. Okay, you want it over here? Okay.
See into the phone.
Ah.
There you go, perfect.
So that's the final product, or what it could be. I put everything on here, but you could do whatever you want. So thank you so much for coming, everyone, and let's eat. Yeah.